let's hop into this master planning strategy document. I'm going to go through a bunch of numbers basically, because this is really where it all starts. If you want to hit your, desired outcomes and goals with cold email, it's going to come down to planning properly. Okay, so let me share this, and this is a resource I'm going to be sharing with everybody. So don't worry about replicating this. Or but basically, what I have here is we've got a goal planner. I'm going to break down those goals by different lead types, lead list building strategy types, goal types, and then I'm going to have a list of tasks and things that can help you execute on these things, a little tracking sheet, a thing to manage, domains, inboxes, logins, lead lists, and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a great resource for everybody. So let me walk through this. So in this spreadsheet, first thing we want to do in order to get as many customers we want, we got to plan. Okay, we got to plan our attack. So inside of this spreadsheet, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell it how many customers I want to hit. Okay, so how many customers do you want to get over a certain period of time? Basically, we're just going to enter a number. For the sake of this, I've got the number 12 in here. So let's say I want to sign 12 new customers over the course of 180 days. By inputting these numbers, it's going to update all of this down below, which I'll get to in just a second. Okay. And we're going to enter an error factor. So one big failure point and choke point that I see with people who are launching cold email is they don't plan for things to not go as planned, right? Okay. So we always have an idea of what's going to happen when we launch a strategy, when we launch something new to generate leads and opportunities for our business, right? But they don't really plan for what doesn't happen if it doesn't go according to plan. So this is just a little multiplier that it's going to add. It's going to update a bunch of numbers down here that I'm going to get to in just a second. Then we're going to enter our reply rate. So with cold email, obviously we got to get replies. That's a KPI, key performance index, that we need to manage. Okay, and this number, for the sake of all of our planning, we're going to base it on the total number of leads, not our reply rate for every single email. It's going to be what percent of our leads actually reply to us. Then we need to plan for how many conversations that we generate. And what I define as a conversation, and this is what I want everybody to start thinking about, and instead of just immediately trying to go for how many customers, we need to break these things down into buckets. Conversations are basically positive replies. So these conversations, you're not always going to get the output that you want the second that you want it, right? So you're not always going to get the customer the second you send an email. So we have to plan these things in stages. So for the sake of this, let's say it's 25% of our replies are some sort of positive reply from that person. Now, to take that a little bit deeper, then we have opportunities. These are going to be closer to like meetings, book meetings, and things of that nature, a little bit further down the funnel. So 25% of our conversations, we want to lead into opportunities. And these are all editable, right? But I'm putting in some averages here for everybody as a starting point. Then, of course, once we have a meeting scheduled, you've got a show rate. Okay, so for this purpose, I'm going to put 70%. People are going to no show. For outbound, I often see people overestimate this number. It might even be lower than this. I'd err on the side of caution when you're building this plan and strategy. Okay, so we always want to plan on the lower end so we can actually achieve this goal. Okay, and then close rate, another number that I oftentimes see people sort of overestimate in the cold outbound space. And it doesn't necessarily mean that people won't close eventually. Over time, if you nurture and follow up with people, you'll close more. But a lot of people, if they haven't done cold email in the past, they oftentimes are used to getting referrals and networking leads and things like that, and those close at a much higher rate. With cold email, we have to manage our expectations a little bit better. Okay, so within this, we want to plan on the lower side, and maybe if it's even lower than 15%. Over the long run, you can probably close those at a higher rate. But in terms of what you want to get now out of this, let's plan a little bit lower. So this is going to set the stage for the volume and things that we need. So with all of that experience that I've had in the past, one of the biggest things that I see that leads to failures, people not planning enough volume to hit the goal. So by entering all these numbers, what it's going to do is it's going to spit out here how many leads that we need, valid leads that we need in order to actually achieve these goals. Okay, so this is just a bunch of math equations here. Okay, so based on these numbers, over the course of this 180 days that we have in here, we need almost 37,000 valid leads. And that would mean we need about 3,700 replies, 914 conversations, 229 opportunities, 160 shows, people that show up to an appointment. And then this closed won number says 24. The reason why it's different from this is we're applying an error factor. Okay, so we have to plan for the chance that things just don't go as planned. Okay, so we want to shoot high. All right, and to break this down, this is our monthly number we need to hit. This is our weekly number we need to hit. This is our daily number to hit. And then if you're only sending cold emails on the weekdays, here's the volume that we need to hit every single weekday to achieve our goals. Okay, so these numbers are going to make up the overall volume that we need, particularly starting out with our lead list. Okay, so these are the good numbers to shoot for based on some of these and factoring in our error rate. Now, the next thing, because people don't oftentimes factor in the proper volume, it actually gets deeper than that. So I mentioned verified leads, valid leads. So here's our total leads. Another mistake that people oftentimes make is they don't factor in some specifics about their lead lists. Okay. And what do I mean by that? So first of all, with lead lists, there's emails that are considered what are called catch-all emails. I won't go into a whole deep dive into catch-all, but basically these are riskier emails at lead databases and things of that nature. They don't necessarily know if the email actually exists or not. So we need to plan for that in order to get the right amount of valid leads. And I'm just going to change this in real time here. Valid leads. We need to plan for this. Now, this is educated number. So of the leads that we get from any sort of lead database, you can about estimate that about 50% of your leads are going to be catch-all. Now, this is vastly dependent on the type of leads you're going after. If you're going after enterprise companies, mid-market companies, they're going to be more likely to be using custom email servers for their email provider. They're going to be more likely to be using Microsoft for their email provider. And those leads typically have what are called these catch-all leads. Now, what we want to do with these is we want to do some sort of catch-all verification so that we're not emailing potentially bad leads. And what this does is this reduces the number of leads typically of your catch-alls down to 50%. Okay. Then we want to plan for, of the leads that aren't catch-all, how many of them are likely to be valids. So I've ran studies on this, and of those, about 92% is a good number. A lot of your lead databases are going to have valid leads and things like that because data doesn't get refreshed as often and things of that nature. Okay, so based on all of these numbers and these inputs, and these are some averages I put in for everybody, we're actually going to need 36,571 catch-all leads. And then we're going to need, based on these numbers, about 20,000 non-catch-all leads, meaning we need about 56,500 total leads. So up here where I had valid leads, we actually need more leads from a database than the leads that we're actually planning for. Okay. So that's kind of the basis. So this is going to help us formulate some of our numbers later on, which I'm going to get into in terms of planning and strategy. Now, I'm going to teach a little bit more about this, quite a bit more of this on the second day. But in order to achieve these results, there's going to be some strategies we want to implement with our list building that is going to help us increase the odds of actually achieving the outcome that we want. Okay. And I like to bucket these into basically 3 types of lead categories. Intent style leads. And I don't necessarily mean like intent like some of the databases are selling these days with, based on search results and things like that. There's some inaccuracies with those, which I won't talk about just for the sake of time here on this call. But we want to target higher intent leads for a bulk of our leads. So what this is going to do, these higher intent leads, it's going to increase our conversion rates. It's going to lower our friction with prospects, and it's going to give us a more likely outcome to hit the goal that we actually want to achieve. Okay. So I just put in 40% of our leads of these numbers. We want our higher intent leads. And then the next bucket are lookalike leads. So these are leads that look like our most successful customers and our most successful prospects. Okay, so we want to start building lists around people who look like those higher intent leads and or our existing customers. Again, this is going to help lower the friction with our lead list and help us increase our potential conversions and achieve that goal that we want to be planning for. Okay, and then our standard leads, this is just going to be your normal leads from a lead database. Okay. Basically, all based on that, you've got your total numbers here. So we'd be looking at needing 22,579 leads before they're validated, intent leads, 17,000 lookalike leads, and 17,000 standard leads. Okay. And of those, here's what we need for valid leads. Okay. So now we're closer to, we've hit our valid number of leads here. So if we look at our total valid leads here broken down, it equals the total number of leads that we actually need here. Okay, so some of these aren't going to be valid. We're going to be spending money on data that doesn't really necessarily get used. Now that we understand the number of valid leads we need to plan for our infrastructure. So this is, the second most important thing, or really from a cold email success perspective, outside of this planning, we have to make sure we land in the inbox, right? So we need to build our infrastructure, email infrastructure around those valid leads. Okay. So what we want to do, we need to enter a number of average emails that we're going to send per lead. So for all of our campaigns, we're going to send a certain number of emails, right? And I put in a number like 2.5. You might want to send 2 leads or 2 emails per lead on average. You might end up sending 3 emails on average. I just put the number 2.5 in here. Then we enter the number of emails that we want to send per inbox per day. I've entered a very conservative number, the number 5. It used to be that you could send 100 emails, 200 emails, 300 emails, and achieve the result you want. But it's gotten a lot harder, of course, over time to land in the inbox and hit the numbers. This keeps us on the safe side with the email gods. I call the email gods, Google, Microsoft, the email gods, because they're really the gatekeepers of the inbox. Okay, so we want to be hyper conservative. Then in an effort to be, again, conservative so we can try to hit this goal, we want to plan for things not working as well as we might hope. Okay, so we're going to want to enter how many backup inboxes that we need. Okay, so based on all these numbers and all these inputs, this is estimating we need 142 email inboxes. We'd have 43 backups for a total of about 185 inboxes. And if you use 3 email accounts per inbox, you need 62 domains. Okay. So that's some of the numbers for our volume planning. Then within that, in terms of our strategy, I'll talk a little bit more about this on day 2. We're going to want to split these domains and inboxes across multiple workspaces with Google, with Microsoft, and then custom email servers. Now, if you're running lower volume, you may not need custom. If you're running super low volume and your addressable market is using Google inboxes, you may not need Microsoft. So this is dependent on your lead list, which I can't necessarily tell you on this call because I haven't analyzed your lead list. But for the sake of this call, that's the way things kind of shape up. Okay, it's just splitting each of these into how many workspaces we need. Now, what we're going to want to do here is assign these inboxes to basically a list building strategy. So those intent leads, we're going to want to assign about 74 of those email inboxes to the intent leads. We're going to want 56 email inboxes for the lookalike leads. And then we're going to want another 56 assigned to those standard leads. Okay, so that's how things would sort of break up in terms of your email inboxes. All right, so this is all setting the stage in order to essentially hit this goal that we want to hit. And when I share this document with you, again, you just basically anything that is highlighted, this little yellow color here, is going to update these formulas for you automatically. Okay, so just any of these numbers, you can play with this and it's going to update your volume and it's going to tell you exactly what you need on every single level here so that you can plan your attack more accurately. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to hop into our goals by lead type. So I want to get into a little bit of a volume. Okay, so this is what things are going to look like for you on a monthly basis. All right, so of course, these are all based on what we have set up for a goal. So what we're going to want every single month for our intent leads, we're going to want about 2,500 leads every single month in the intent bucket. We're going to want about 1,900 lookalike leads, and we're going to want 1,900 standard leads. This is just coming straight from our goal planner here. Now, what you can do once you get your hands on this document, you can update these numbers. So think about each one of these is going to have different conversion metrics. Okay, so your intent leads. And again, I'm going to dive into what intent leads are and what signals you should use to help you drive higher conversions. Your reply rate might actually be higher it should be higher on your intent leads. So you might come in here and maybe add a factor of like 5% to this, okay? And that's going to bump up your average total reply rate. And what you can do is you can play with these numbers to get your total goal of 10%. Right. So it might be that, this is at 10%, and it might be that this is like maybe a little bit less. Okay. So you can play with this until you sort of hit that blended average. Okay. Same thing with your conversation rate. Same thing with your meeting rate. Same thing with your show rate. Ultimately, the goal we want to do here is we want to make sure we can plan our volume appropriately to hit the number of customers we want to hit. Okay, so in this scenario, it's estimating 4.1 customers per month. And that number also is going to match our numbers up here if we were to, sort of factor in sort of that error factor, right? So we need 4 customers a month. All right. Now, that's just our initial emailing. I know most of you won't do this, but I do want to spend just a second here talking about a concept called stack and loop. Okay, so oftentimes, more times than not, things aren't going to go like not everyone's going to reply, right? So if you get 10% of your leads to reply to you, that means 90% of them aren't going to reply. That doesn't mean they're dead leads. That just means now's not the right time. Okay, so I would encourage everybody to use what I call my looping. It's basically nurturing. So, and if you want to do this, basically what we're doing is after they've finished our initial campaign, we're going to automatically enroll them into a nurturing follow-up campaign. Okay, and we're just going to continue to nurture them. Same thing as before. You can enter numbers here. Now, this should actually increase your success. It might take you longer to achieve these numbers. This might happen over the course of another 3 months or 6 months, but over time, you can keep nurturing these leads. You don't have to keep burning through leads. Okay, so that's what this is going to do. And then if you want to go real crazy, if you have a team, you got people that can pick up the phone, then you can plan your attack on the phone. Okay, so you can plan volume here. How many dials you want to hit? What's your connect rate? What's your meeting rate? What's your show rate? So on and so forth. You can experience a huge uplift in customer conversion by doing every single one of these buckets. So looping, you got phone stacking, you got LinkedIn stacking. Okay. So I won't go into every single one of these, but this is, again, a resource for you guys to plan your attack. All right. So you can at least have a chance to hit your numbers. Then this is going to total up. I have a little issue with my formula. I'll fix that off the call here, but this is going to total everything up for you. This next tab here is just going to break everything down, total everything month by month. Okay. And then once you get into this, you can plan week by week. So, all right, maybe I need to launch a new campaign for intent this week, lookalikes this week, standard this week. We can start peeling back the onion so we can plan this attack to actually hit our desired outcome. All right, and I do have, as I mentioned, a checklist for everybody. This is not an all-encompassing checklist by any means, but it's a little checklist for everyone. And then I've got a tracking sheet. So day by day, you can enter, how many emails, you can keep track of things, how many replies, conversations, opportunities, how many customers we signed, so on and so forth. So this is going to help us make sure we're accountable to the strategy that we're implementing. And again, what I oftentimes see, and all these things I'm going through are based on all this experience. I've seen people fail, and you have a tendency to give up. So if we don't plan the attack and then track once we actually implement the attack, you're more likely to give up, and you're less likely to hit the numbers that you need to hit. So tracking this, even if it's just a rudimentary, you come in here daily, right, and you enter a number, this is going to serve as an accountability mechanism for you, which most people don't do, which makes it more likely for you to just forget about it, which we don't want. If you are going to do any sort of lead gen or marketing strategy at all, if you don't have tracking and KPIs and goals to hit, you're probably not going to hit it. You can't hit numbers that you really don't plan for. Okay, so if you see something's off in the equations, well, maybe we need to crank up volume. Maybe our error factor wasn't quite right. Okay, so maybe we're not converting at the level that we thought we would. Okay, and things aren't going as planned. Well, as things happen, we can update our numbers. Now, kind of peeling back the onion, another resource for you guys for managing your infrastructure. I've got a little worksheet. I've been sharing this worksheet for years. If you don't have access to it yet, you'll have access to it. You can plan out all your domains and all the tasks you need for, setting out all those up, all that kind of stuff. I've got another tab for managing all of your inboxes, passwords, all that kind of stuff, what strategy you're assigning inboxes to, really the whole nine. And then a couple other tabs for managing logins. And then our personas tab here is going to help us plan our list building. So we can assign a lead strategy to it. We can assign, if it's an intent strategy, we can assign which intent strategy we're going to go with, what our list source is, what our email finder source is. And Lead Magic is Jesse. So I encourage everybody to go sign up for leadmagic.io. This is a big part of the strategy here. And then some of our other sources. So if we're doing lookalike leads, if we're doing, standard leads, things of that nature. All right. So this document is going to serve as basically your master planning doc. So you can pump out the volume you need to pump. to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. Okay. Without it, and I've seen this over and over again, 95% of people fail because they don't have this in place. So if you're going to do cold email, launch new campaigns, I highly, highly encourage everybody to go through this exercise. It doesn't even take that long. I have most of it built for you. You just enter some numbers, error on the side of caution, and you'll be more likely to succeed and manage your cold email campaigns.